Thank you for having us, Judy. We appreciate your partnership and everyone that's attended today and over the course of the month. And we'd love to continue to partner in the future. And we will be collaborating in various ways to hopefully offer as the branches open groups for people. And I know Kat's going to go over our great resources, our helpline, and our support groups, which Kat is amazing and does it all. She runs groups for us, and she teaches education programs like this, and has her own business and family, and we so appreciate her giving of her time. So Kat's going to lead our conversation today, and as Judy said, if any questions, any comments, we'd be happy to take them and do our best. So I'll turn it over to Kat.
Thank you so much, Nicolette. Thank you, Judy, for having these wonderful programs over at the Ocean County Library. My name is Kat Verdi. I am the founder of Verdi Consultant, LLC. I am a certified Alzheimer and dementia care trainer. I am an advocate for caregivers, those aging in place, and our LGBT elders that are very, very underserved. But thank goodness, policy and legislation has been put in place in our beautiful state of New Jersey. So things are happening. Basically, I guide families. I'm a resource. I'm a vetted resources for anyone that is in the journey of dementia or just in healthcare transition, meaning mom had a stroke, mom has Parkinson, life has changed for the family. I help you navigate through the myriad of options and possibilities, but I am proud to say that I do it in a very vetted way because there's too many people out there. Some people are working like we do from our heart and truly to help others. And unfortunately, there's a lot of scams and virtual stuff that goes on that is not good for families. But when you're in crisis, sometimes you fall into silly traps like that. I am so proud to be a part of the Alzheimer Association for almost now a year. Can you believe that, Nicolette? The time has gone more than a year, actually. All our training. I'm a proud advocate for New Jersey. I do the educationals, and I love, love, love doing the support groups as well. So we're going to talk today about effective communication strategies. The program goals are, by the end of today's program, that you will be able to, one, explain the communication changes that take place throughout the course of the disease. Two, decode the verbal and behavioral messages delivered by someone with dementia and respond in ways that are helpful to the person. And lastly, we're going to identify strategies to connect and communicate at each stage of the disease. What is communication? Well, communication is going to vary in this unforeseen disease. I didn't mention it early, but full disclosure, I am struggling with dementia with 3 family members. And everybody is in a different stage. They're all my mom's siblings. So you can imagine how difficult this is to see her siblings literally, withering away with this awful disease. But communication, it could be connecting with others, body language, sending messages, sense of self, conversation, self-expression, attitude, tone of voice, really important, receiving the messages, interaction, relationships, words, listening, and of course, last but not least, are facial expressions. Those matter quite a bit in this journey. Communication definitely changes throughout this disease. In the early stage, the mild, convey thoughts and feelings through language, able to make decisions about future care, may misinterpret what others say. In the middle stages, which we also know as moderate, the use of basic words and sentences rely more on tone of the voice or the facial expression and body language. Folks that are in this moderate stage continue to need emotional connection and meaningful activity. That is a very, very strong one for me. I think we forget that in part of this journey, you still want to have a purpose. And that's one of the goals is to be as a caregiver, to try to find purpose, because this is a very difficult journey. And if there's the tips that we share today can make life a little bit easier, then that's a wonderful thing. In the late stages, the severe stages, a person may still respond to similar words, phrases, or songs. Use of body language and 5 senses to connect. In the early stages, changes you may notice include difficulty finding the right words, taking longer to speak or respond. And I'm going to come back to that one in a minute. Withdrawing from conversations, struggling with decision-making and problem solving, taking longer to speak or respond. I can't stress this enough. This was the biggest challenge with our family. The processing is very delayed in some people that are in the throes in the journey of dementia. So we are so used to saying, "Hi, Judy, how are you? What's going on?" That was 3 sentences. For a person in this journey, it takes a while, a little bit longer than I believe it's 8 seconds that we process those 3 sentences. For people that are in this dementia, it takes much, much longer. So it's much, much, much easier if you say, "Hello," and pause, "How are you today?" And don't expect that answer to be within the next, say, 5 or 10 seconds. It may be double the time or maybe longer. Martha Tierney is an Associate Director of Research Volunteer Programs for the National Office of the Alzheimer Association, and she has something to share with us.
Communicating in the early stages of dementia with the person with the disease is important. At that time, you still have language as a tool, so you can learn things about what they might prefer as the disease progresses. For example, as the disease progresses, a person might have difficulty finding words. Caregivers often struggle to know what to do in that moment. Early on in the disease, you can ask. You can say, if you ever have trouble coming up with a word, would you rather that I jump in and give you the word, or do you want me to wait and allow you some time so you can find it on your own?
Can you make communication in the early stages to connect? Ask directly how to help with communication, just as Ms. Tierney just told us. Keep sentences clear and straightforward. Leave plenty of time for conversations. We're going to come back to that one. Include the person in conversations that affect him or her, including planning for the future. Leaving plenty of time for conversations. This is what I tell families that I work with. Life has changed for us. What usually, how we did things. For example, I will be running into my car. I'm going to start my day. My husband hasn't left yet, and I'll be running, grabbing my bag, my keys, and all the stuff that we need for my car ride. And I'll yell out to my husband, "Hey, don't forget, feed the dog." That kind of communication has to be modified, because exactly to what the previous slide said, the processing is going to take a little bit longer. So this avoids any miscommunication or anybody getting annoyed. But I told you, we have to be conscious that we have to change the way we behave and communicate with our loved ones. So we do need, for something that is as silly as me reminding my husband to feed the dog, I would have to be in front of my husband. "Hey, don't forget to feed the dog." Very straightforward, very calm, and very specific words in one sentence. Keep in mind to avoid making assumptions. Speak directly to the person. Communicate in the way that is most comfortable for the person. Options include the phone, email, or in person. Laugh together. Be honest. Laugh together and stay connected with each other. Changes you may notice in the middle stage: increased difficulty finding the right words, using familiar words repeatedly, inventing new words to describe familiar things, easily losing our train of thought, speaking less frequently, communicating through behavior rather than words more than often. Consult a doctor when you notice major or sudden changes in your loved one. Beverly is a caregiver, support group facilitator whose husband has Alzheimer's disease. Let's see what she has to share with us.
I would advise couples, and I usually do advise the caregiver who comes to the group and is caring for a spouse, that you take your time. Always count to 3 before you respond, because it gives you time to think about your answer and what's going on. Generally, in a marital dispute, it's quick. It's back and forth. You're quick to give an answer. When they've been diagnosed, to sit back and say, okay, you're supposed to be the one that's reasonable here. Let's change how we do this, because there's only one thing you can control, and that's you. You cannot control them in their process.
I absolutely love Beverly. I hope to meet Beverly one day. She is so right. I have to quote her: the only thing that we can control is us. They are in the journey. They're not going to remember. There's so many different things that are going on with our loved ones. So to count to 3 is the best advice that Beverly can give all of us, because it can be very daunting and it can be frustrating, but it's not an even argument, because they are in the journey of dementia and we're not. In the middle stages, communication: to connect, approach the person gently, approach them from the front, say who you are and call the person by name, maintain eye contact and get at eye level if seated or reclining. Avoid criticizing, correcting, and arguing. Pay attention to your tone. And again, take your time. This one is very close and dear to me, because that was a very big challenge in our family. My mom and her brother, before he was diagnosed with dementia, they would talk to their brother, who was in moderate middle stage of dementia, and they would forget. And they would constantly startle him, because they would talk to him from when he wasn't facing them. So it was really hard to kind of retrain my family to take these tips and say, no, you got to be in front of them. You got to have eye contact. And my one uncle that I love very dearly, this is how he would start conversations. My uncle's name is Reynaldo. Reynaldo, you know who I am, right? And it was like, oh my gosh, no, don't say that to him. So start as the tip says. Hi, I'm Kat. How are you, Uncle? You know what I mean? Like, it just remind yourself that this is how we're going to communicate moving forward. Rebecca's mother had Alzheimer's disease, and she is going to share some of her thoughts.
She could sense my frustration, because occasionally I would lose my patience and I would bark at her. Why are you asking me that question again? I just answered that question 2 minutes ago. And then she would get frustrated because, she was very old school, and she's like, don't disrespect me. And I didn't ask you that question 2 minutes ago. It's a new question. So phase 2 of our relationship was like, okay, that's a new question. I'll answer it again.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me again of my uncle. Not only did he want him to remember who he was, but the repetitiveness was really, really prominent with my uncle Reynaldo, who is still with us in a facility in very advanced dementia. And he would repeat himself at least 17 times. My mom was a little bit more patient. My uncle was very, very much like Rebecca. He would get very frustrated. I just said that to you. And the tone and the agitated, it would only make things escalate. So to Rebecca's point, you got to take a breath. And you know what? They don't know that they just asked you that. So you, again, the control is with us. To connect, join the person's reality. Keep respect and empathy in your mind. Then assess the person's needs. Let the person know you hear his or her concerns, whether they are expressed through words, behavior, or both. Provide a brief answer. Respond to the emotions behind the statement. Provide a brief answer. That's huge also. We have to redirect the way we communicate. We are not going to have logical conversations. We are not going to have a debate any longer. So the briefer the answer is, the better the communication is, because you can move on to the next thing or conversation or activity. To connect, keep it slow and basic. Use short sentences and basic words. Speak slowly and clearly. One person, one question at a time. That is a huge one in my family. Limit distractions. Be patient. Offer a guess or fill in words if acceptable. I cannot tell you how big of a challenge that was for our family. We love a lot. We are crazy. The dinner table, Thanksgiving is just crazy pants fun. But we had to alter that because that was way too much stimulation for my uncle. And we had to remember one at a time. It was best to communicate and interact with him one-on-one. No, like, so let's say it was the Thanksgiving dinner. And so we would take my uncle to a quieter room of the house and everybody would engage with him. It was so much easier and so much more communication happened between he and our family because he wasn't in the big room with all the chatter and the craziness going on. He was so much more productive. And one of the things that we definitely learned very quickly is give visual prompts. So for example, it was very challenging when it was lunchtime. So what do you feel like eating? That is way too vague. That is way too complex for him. So what we redirected ourselves and said, okay, let's have a ham sandwich or soup. And my mom or whoever was there would be like, do you want a ham sandwich today? Or do you want soup? And like, she had both things out. And it was so much easier because he would sometimes, he was a little bit, he didn't want to speak. So he would just point at what he wanted. And life was a lot easier. To connect, give multiple cues. Provide visual cues and gestures. Avoid sudden movement. Write things down for the person. Put answers into your questions. Repeat as needed. Turn negatives into positives. Avoid quizzing. Turn negatives into positives is huge because I can tell that he was so disappointed and perhaps he knew like, what the heck is going on with me? He went to reach for a glass of water in front of him and everything went spilling. And this is where you turn the negative into positive. That's okay. I have a napkin right here. And right away, I quickly like sopped up the water and it was done. Instead of giving him time to process. And I believe that he knew like, gosh, I'm so clumsy. It's very normal and natural for us to feel that way or feel like a little embarrassed. But because of this disease, it was so quick for me to be like, all right, let's get past this little incident. So very, very important to try to take the negatives and make it a positive. Now, of course, some of the negatives can be a little bit of greater need. For example, if there was incontinence, but always try to turn it into a positive. That's okay. I have another pair of pants for you. Come on, we're going to go get cleaned up. You don't want the person to feel even worse about the incident he may or she may realize has just occurred. To connect, responds empathetically and reassure. Join the person's reality. Provide reassurance that you hear and understand. Focus on the feelings, not the facts. Validate and redirect the person if necessary. I want to touch really quickly on joining the person's reality. That is the hardest thing that I find with clients when I work with them in the home, of how to adjust and live with the disease and their loved ones. Sometimes, I know my uncle did it as well, he would revert back and really believe that his mom was going to come and pick him up. So now we know that my grandmother's been not with us for 40 years. So obviously that's not happening. It was so hard for his brother, and he would say to him, mom died. And where I would be like, let's be in his reality. Maybe that's where he is, and he's vividly remembering his childhood. So it's not going to hurt anybody. Okay. What time, do you know what time mom's going to pick you up? Yes, she said right before dinner. Great. Well, we have a few hours, a few minutes. We have time. Why don't we do this puzzle until your mom comes and picks you up? Completely de-escalated the situation, the fascination. And he was fine. Like, okay, can you get me that puzzle book? I like that one. Like automatic. He just wanted to be validated that in his mind, his mom was picking him up. And it was so hard for my uncle to see me react and engage that way, because I guess for him, it hurt him. You know, he misses his mom, even though his mom is gone 40 years. But it was a way for me to make him walk in our uncle, his brother's shoes, and say, see, this is his reality. Let's step into it for a minute. Changes you may notice include communication is reduced to a few words or sounds. Possible responses to familiar words or phrases. Now, let me just preface by saying this is communication at the late stage of the disease. To connect, listen for expressions of pain and respond promptly. Help the person feel safe and happy. Continue to bring respect to each conversation. Keep talking. Use all 5 senses to communicate. This is a very difficult stage, in my opinion, because definitely the disease has taken a different route. And again, to keep talking is very difficult for families because sometimes it's not reciprocated. But I love the 5 senses to communicate, because touch is so engaging. And even if you got some lavender cream and just kind of massage their hands, their shoulders, you are engaging. The scent of the cream, it encourages and engages, and it prompts some communication. Maybe it's just with body language, but again, it keeps you engaged with your loved one. Sandra's mother is in the late stage of Alzheimer's disease.
I know that my mom feels aggravated. I know that she feels alone. I know that she feels confused. And I know on any given day, I don't know if I've made it better for her. I try. In these later stages, I've come to recognize that being really aware of the 5 senses is really important. Touch seems to give her a great deal of comfort. I know when I come over, I'm going to brush her hair all the time. My husband noted to me recently, he said, you should see the look on your mom's face when you're brushing her hair. She's just happy. She's just happy. She doesn't say a lot. And I do it for a long period of time. I comb it, I braid it, I do funny things with it, but it just allows me to just be with her in a way that makes her feel comfortable.
Again, how strong touch can be. And I think it's for both, for the caregiver and the loved one. It goes both ways. And I'm so happy that Sandra shared that with us. Connect through touch, feel different fabrics, identify shapes by touch, give lotion hand massages, identify everyday items in a bag by touch, visit with animals, sculpt using non-toxic materials, hold a person's hand or stroke his and her arm or back. Connect through sight. Laminate brightly colored pictures to look at together. Watch videos of animals, nature, or travel. Look at photo albums together. View photos of famous paintings, favorite settings, or prominent people from the past. Go bird watching or visit an aquarium. Paint with watercolors. Go outdoors or sit by an open window together. All things that can be so stimulating, and not necessarily do you have to have a conversation. It's just being in that moment that I think changes the dynamics of things. Connect through sound. Listen to familiar music. Listen to recordings of sounds of nature, farms, cities, or animals. Identify musical instruments by sound. Listen to song or speech in the person's native language. Read books, poetry, scripture, or newspaper articles to the person. Let the person hear the gentle tone of your voice. Connect through smell. Make small plastic bags containing items for the person to smell, such as herbs or spices, cotton balls dipped in essential oils, grass clippings or fragrant flowers, teas or coffee beans. Use fragrant lotions or for hand massages. Cook or feed the person foods that smell good, such as apple pie or chicken soup. Connect through taste. Favorite foods, home-baked goodies, popsicles, flavored drinks, ice creams, and puddings. Communication in all stages of disease. Join the person's reality to connect. Understand and accept what you can and cannot change. Remember that the person retains a self, and I'm sorry, Nicolette, I can't see what it says. Self, despite the losses of the disease. Demonstrate respect and connect through feelings. Always treat the person as the adult he or she is. Try to decode the person's communications. Recognize the effects of your mood and actions. Try to understand the source of reactions. Help meet the needs while soothing and calming the person. Sam Fazio, PhD, is the Director of Special Projects for the National Office of the Alzheimer Association, and he has something to share with us.
Taking care of yourself while you care for somebody with the disease not only impacts your own health, but it really can impact the person with the disease. So, for example, if you're not getting enough sleep, you might be easily irritated, which will then sort of spill over to your interactions with the person with the disease, and maybe being short with them, which then might cause them to get frustrated. So it's not only important to take care of yourself for your own health, but really for you to really be a good caregiver.
I can't agree with Sam 1000%. Because as caregivers, all the tips that we're sharing with you, it's a lot. And it all depends on where your loved one is in this journey of dementia and Alzheimer's. But it is one of the things that we forget is we have to care for ourselves. It's okay to ask for help. It's okay to take what I like to call a self timeout, just to regroup, just to reset ourselves, and to continue to be the best caregivers that we can be. One of the things that is very important to me when I speak with families, when was the last time you went and got a physical? When was the last time you went to the dentist? When is the last time, for ladies, the many, many annual doctor's visits that we have to have? And surprisingly, it's been years. So things can be going on that are not detected. And, you know, in my conversations, I say, you know, what happens if something is wrong with you because you haven't done your due diligence on yourself? What happens then to your loved one? And that prompts people usually be like, you know what? I need to make time and do this. So it's very important that caregivers also, you know, take time for themselves. Please feel free to contact us. We can help. ALZ.org, Alzheimer's Navigator, the Community Resource Finder, ALC Connected, ALZ Alzheimer's and Dementia Caregiver Center, our Safety Center, or calling us 24/7 helpline available all day, every day at 800-272-3900. ALZ.org, find us, support groups, education programs, and more available in communities nationwide. Training.alz.org, free online education programs available at training.alz.org. Get involved. Walk to End Alzheimer's. There's so many walks going on throughout New Jersey. To be a volunteer, the longest day, which just recently passed, to be an advocate and represent our state. Alzheimer's Association trial match, that's awesome. If you go to that website, to the link on our website, there's so much research that may be available if it's something that you're interested in. Once you go there to the link, you know, you have to answer a few questions, and obviously to participate, there are some caveats that you have to obviously meet the requirements or the guidelines, but it is very, very resourceful. A lot of interesting research is going on and very available to all of us. Any questions, always, once again, 24/7 helpline, 800-272-3900. And of course, the website is alz.org. And this concludes our educational program. And of course, we'd love to open it up to any questions or any comments, by all means.
Thank you so much, Kat. I don't think that we received any questions or comments in the chat, but we do have time. And if anybody wants to put something in the chat or even unmute themselves and ask a question, that question would be welcome, and hopefully you'll get a good answer.
We're happy to help, and I think I just wanted to, you know, Kat hit such good points on everything, and I think about communication, and you know, oftentimes we fall into that trap where we try and reorient someone, as Kat was saying, and we try and you know, show them reality or tell them that they're repeating themselves. And at the end of the day, I try and look at it, how are we really trying to have relationships with people and communicate with them? Do we want to argue with them every time and tell them, you just said that, or, stop doing that, or get frustrated? Or do we want those to be meaningful? And I think a lot of those five senses and a lot of good points Kat brought out, just kind of looking around us and thinking about, music is so powerful. There's so many different areas of the brain that is affected by music. And when we listen to music from a certain time period, we think about, what do the lyrics mean, and what did we hear, and what was going on in our lives and the world, and what does that mean to us? And when we look at photos, oftentimes someone's memories that are older are fresher. So as Kat was saying, someone may think that it's years ago, and those memories seem like they're a little boy yesterday. So kind of connecting with that. What time is your mom coming? What time? Okay, so we have some time, redirecting into another way is really much more successful and helps us have good communication and good relationships, which at the end of the day is really what we want. We don't want to have these kind of combative relationships with people. So definitely we appreciate Kat. And Kat, there is a question I see now in the chat.
Yes. What would you recommend to someone? Oh, it just moved. Can you read it?
I can read it.
Okay, great.
What would you recommend someone do if their loved one is in the pre-stages of dementia, forgetting things, getting angry about it? So it's hard to talk to them about it. What do you recommend?
Right. That's a great question. And the beginning stages is really the calm before the storm, quite frankly. I can share my personal journey. My uncle was a psychiatrist, renowned in Brooklyn, New York, for 53 years. So clearly he was aware something was going on cognitively, but he was so adamant of not talking about it with us, the family. So my recommendation, and there was other things that took place. So the journey was definitely skewed, if you will. But for this particular question, the frustration that your loved one is giving is because they probably are identifying themselves like, what the heck is going on with me? I would highly recommend a very generic conversation. You can't tell people what to do because that seems to really agitate things. But I'd say, mom, dad, if you think that you're forgetting, why don't you just go and get a physical? Let's start with the PCP. Now, what I recommend to you, the caregiver, is have a separate conversation with the primary care provider and say, hey, here's what we're noticing. One of the things that I always say, get yourself a notebook. That's your notebook to jot everything and anything. And it's going to become like a little journal, because once you get to that doctor's office, now you're dealing with your loved one being right next to you. So you have to be very cautious and delicate on how you approach things with the doctor. But if you have that notebook, it's such a helpful resource for you to remember, because a lot of things are happening. Things may happen, last month that are different this month, and you're going to the doctor in 2 months. How are you going to remember all that? So I highly recommend that, just planting the seed with your loved one. Say, well, you know what? Why don't we just go get a physical? Why don't we just go get a checkup and start rolling the ball that way? Because if you already are noticing more stuff, the next step is really going to a neurologist, and your loved one will be more accepting if you have the conversation with the PCP first, and then say, when we go visit you, I would love just for you to direct us to a neurologist. Now you're getting the ball rolling. Now you're getting ahead, because from what you're writing, it's like the onset. So there could be some medication. There could be things that if you address them now instead of later can change things for your loved one.
We have another question. How do you help someone whose frustration is expressed in cursing and calling his loved ones names? And additional medication is not an option in this case.
Well, again, I have to wonder, when was the last time we saw a neurologist? Is this now an advancing of the disease, dementia, Alzheimer's? Do we have we been diagnosed correctly? We cannot help anyone without professional help. We can do everything in our power to modify our behaviors, but at some point, we do need to have that communication with the professionals to kind of guide us, engage us where we are, where our loved ones are in the journey of this disease. The cursing right there, red flag for me, like, well, what's going on? Do we have a UTI? The frustration that's going to come with it, because I do believe my uncle was very frustrated. Not so much now, but again, he's been in the journey for about 5 years now, in the beginning stages, because I really believe in my heart that you must have moments of lucidity when you really almost have like an outer body, like, what the heck is going on with me? I do believe that has to happen in this journey.
So we have two more questions. I'm going to come back to the one about facilities, just to tie in this question, which is something what you're talking about. And this is, if it is in the beginning stages and they know they are forgetting, is it okay to have them journal what their day is like?
Absolutely. In fact, a lot of people with the onset of dementia, that is a level of comfort for them. Yeah, it definitely, it gives them peace of mind. They may not remember that they wrote it, but if they still are cognitive enough to say, today, this is what I did, in the middle of the day, this is what I did at night, by all means, for the person that's going through the onset, to journal is not a problem. I also recommend a journal for the caregiver to see any kind of behavioral changes, any appetite. It just gives you sanity to remember when you have to relay this to a professional.
Okay, Kat, there's another question here. Have you had any experience with Alzheimer's or dementia wings of care facilities? Anything that you can offer?
Oh, yes,
visits, training staff, and so on. If so, what have you noticed that was different in these wings versus the general wings?
Well, yes, that's actually my specialty. I guide families. You have to know what your needs are for your loved one. There are many, many wonderful assisted livings that have wings or floors, and that sometimes it works for certain families. However, because of the increased numbers of people being affected with dementia and Alzheimer, you probably have seen many, many other communities that have popped up that are strictly memory care communities. I am particularly in love with those because they cater to the needs of the person. So it's quote unquote not a wing. They're free to roam around. That's what dementia does. They like to walk. They like to, what they call, they're just walking in circles. Well, in these communities, they have been constructed in that way. A lot of them mimicking the Netherlands. The Netherlands have been very, very progressive with this disease, and they created little neighborhoods. So we here in America are definitely starting to mimic that kind of construction. Why? Because it allows the person to really have a purpose. There's little store. It almost simulates them having their independence in a very safe environment with the proper staff. So I've seen a lot of clients that I have placed. They were able to go into assisted living, but then the onset came and they kind of transitioned into those wings. I think that the memory care communities that exist are definitely for those of us that have already, we are in the throes of the journey. We know that our loved ones have dementia or Alzheimer's, and they can't be in a regular assisted living because they usually can't do the ADLs, the activity of daily living. So there is a great difference between an assisted living and a memory care community and an assisted living that has a dementia, what they usually call quote unquote dementia wing. So you have to assess what the needs are of your loved one. And most importantly, you have to have a conversation with whatever community you select and say, well, hey, that's great that right now my loved one, this is a good place for him or her. Can you tell me, community, what would make my loved one not eligible to no longer be a resident here? That's a huge question. Because obviously with dementia, behavioral things occur. A lot of different things occur. So you need to be 100% sure that this is the safe haven, because as we know, there's a 2-year spend down, et cetera, and then Medicaid kicks in. And usually these communities, once you private pay for 2 years, then the person transitions into Medicaid. But I have heard atrocities that they paid for 2 years, and then all of a sudden the community calls the family in and said, yeah, he's really a handful. We really can't accommodate him anymore. And the family is like, wait a minute, I don't have another 2 years to pay for something else. So you need to make sure that all those questions are answered.
Okay, I don't see any additional questions, but if anybody wants to just chime in right away now.
I think Kat made some really great points again. She always does. And I think that, definitely meeting people where they're at. So, it doesn't matter. As Kat said, the sky is, they want to say it's purple, or, we don't want to do certain things today, just even saying, getting someone to the doctor, as Kat said, so important. It's not as important to say, I'm concerned that you have Alzheimer's or dementia, but what they're willing to acknowledge. If they're willing to say, I'm having trouble doing X, well, let's get you to the doctor and get that checked out. I really want to help you, being on someone's side, advocating for them, really important. And definitely 100% agree with Kat on the journaling. It's so hard to remember, did I feed my dog today? Or did I take my own medication, to be a caregiver for someone else? Definitely is very helpful when you have things written down, when you have to go to a doctor, a lawyer, what have you. And it helps in that communication as well, as you encounter new things, as things are always changing. So definitely we have a great helpline, translated in hundreds of languages, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You could call for resources, information, crisis. You're just having a bad day and need someone to talk to. They are master trained level professionals. So it is not just someone who is there that does not know what you're going through. And so helpful. I haven't ever received feedback that isn't positive, that they really were able to serve the community. So please reach out if there's things we can help with that you think of maybe at a later time. We're here for you.
So thank you everyone for attending. Thank you very, very much, Kat and Nicolette. As I said, we'll be sending out a link to the recording that you'll be able to view it again. So you can look forward to that. And I know that Nicolette and I have talked about offering a similar series such as this in the fall. So we'll be getting started planning that. So I hope you all just stay cool. We've gotten a lot of thank yous in the chat. So again, thank you, Nicolette and Kat. And if you'd like to stay on, I'm willing to chat with you. I'm going to stop the recording now. And everybody have a nice day. And thank you, Kat, for putting in your contact information. I see that.
Oh, you're welcome, Judy. Hopefully we can connect and collaborate. I love what I do. Reasons what I do is because of my family dynamics, what happened on my mom's side of the family. And I'm so grateful that the library is open and that you guys are in full effect and full swing and taking full advantage of the Alzheimer Association, that is such a rich and wonderful resource for all of us. One of the things and workshops that I do that came about because of the pandemic is explaining dementia to younger children. The worst thing that we want is for children to be afraid of our loved ones that are in this journey. So I do a very nice workshop explaining, what it's like for mom and dad, what, their perception is brilliant. So kudos to the Ocean County Library that you are up and running and such a resource for all the people that are on this call. Have a beautiful day. Thank you to all of you.
Just one last mention. I'm going to be working with the Alzheimer's Association to start some memory cafes in our branches in the fall. We're looking for volunteers to go through the training and be able to lead a cafe. So watch for more news on that. And those are for the early stage memory loss individuals. Okay, everybody? Thank you. Take care.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.